Who's Earnest and why does he want your money?
I'm Doug Spitz, and I want to talk to you about some of the basics of buying a home and a little bit of educating and informing so that when you decide you're ready to buy a home, you know what's going on. And I also want to introduce you to Earnest Money, who Earnest is and why he gets your money. Earnest Money is an important part of your contract. It's actually one of the pieces of the contract you have to fulfill in order to have a complete contract. Let me give you some context about Earnest Money. I like to sit down with my buyers before we start to look at houses so that they know all the details about the contract. They're informed, and we go over Earnest Money. Now, over the past, call it 17 or 20 years, I've had this conversation about Earnest Money hundreds of times. It's very helpful for people. I've had multiple attorneys who sit down with me and say, I know what Earnest Money is, kind of, but please remind me so I'm fully aware of what it is, what this money's for, and what happens to it. I brought with me, for purpose of showing you where and how important this is, one of our contracts. This is our standard Board of Realtor contracts. Most agencies across the city utilize this with a little bit of slight changes from agency to agency for proprietary delivery of their contracts. Your Earnest Money typically shows up on the first page under Section 3, Part A, one of the first things you get into in the contract. Earnest money, in the context of a purchase contract in Cincinnati, is a deposit made by a buyer to demonstrate serious intent to purchase property. It serves as a financial show of good faith when submitting an offer. So in essence, you make that offer on a property, and you're going to provide the sellers some money showing in good faith that I'm serious about the property. Well, how much money is it that you're going to provide? We see contracts come across with as little as $500 and as much as $10, $20, or $40,000 earnest money, depending on how much of a house you're going to buy. Also, how competitive you want to be. If we flip the mirror around and you're submitting your offer to a seller, and that seller has multiple contracts in front of them, it's a very popular house, and it's a house that you say, I see myself living here, and you have an earnest money amount of $500, and the next person has $2, $4, or $10,000 down. If I'm presenting these offers to our seller, we're going to say, I'd feel much more comfortable with somebody that is demonstrating more earnest money, more sincerity, more risk to purchase your home. So now let's talk about the risk and what happens to that earnest money. If you follow the terms of this contract, the 14 pages, there are multiple portions of this contract that are designed to protect you and your earnest money. If you follow the terms and the dates of this contract, your earnest money is protected up until closing. You get a bad appraisal. They change the terms of your financing, so they're no longer favorable to you. The inspection comes back with problems you weren't ready for. Your earnest money is protected and will be returned to you. You blow through the contract and you dismiss your inspections. You get a letter from the lender saying, we love this house, we want to lend on you. At that time, your earnest money goes pretty hard, and it's really hard to get it returned to you. So here's the short story. Multiple terms of this contract protect you and your purchase and your earnest money. You need to be aware of what those are. You need to pay attention to your dates. You need to pay attention to those terms. And as long as you do that, you're going to have smooth sailing through your purchase. Key points to pay attention. The earnest money is a good faith commitment. It signals to the seller that the buyer, you, is financially capable and genuinely committed to the purchase. Your earnest money is typically held by us in a neutral account. It sits in our brokerage account till you close or you terminate the contract. If you close, it's applied to your purchase price. If the contract is terminated and it's terminated under the terms of the contract, then you get your earnest money back. There is a risk of forfeiting your earnest money. If you as a buyer default outside of the protections or the contingencies built into the contract, the seller may be entitled to keep the earnest money as liquidated damages, depending all on the terms of your contract.
How much is the earnest money?
So how much you want to put down? We advise people to put 1 or 2% down as earnest money. Go through that with the buyers, how much they're comfortable putting down and how much free cash they have to put down for earnest money. 1 or 2% should satisfy the needs for the contract. It adds up quickly. It is applied to your purchase price. You may think it's trivial. If we flip the mirror around and we are putting this in front of the sellers, all the terms look great. And then there is a really, what we may not be trivial to you, but a trivial amount of earnest money down. Let's say average home price in the city is $400,000, and you've got somebody who says, I just want to put $500 down as earnest money. All the other terms seem to fit the needs of our seller. And then we've got another contract that is competing and similar, and they're putting down 1%, $4,000. I'm going to have that conversation with the seller. Okay, you got two really good contracts. This one seems more sincere and more committed to seeing the contract through. Earnest money should be delivered to us as quickly as you get an accepted contract. It doesn't have to be provided when you write the contract, but it should be provided immediately upon acceptance, whether you wire it in or you give us a physical check. Our contract defaults to 3 business days. We have a place to pencil in other terms if necessary. It is held in escrow typically by our brokerage rather than going directly to the seller. We just don't, there's no need for the seller to have it. We don't want to have to fight with somebody to get it back if there's a termination of contract under the terms of the contract and we get your earnest money back. So hopefully I've given you enough information to be comfortable with what's earnest money, what happens to my money, why am I giving this to my agent to hold on to until we close, and where does it go? Hopefully you have enough of that information that you're comfortable as you progress through the rest of your contract. There are a lot of other pieces of the contract that we will go over with you at other times, but the earnest money is a great place to start.